Let's do it, Rachel. I'm going to put this closer to you because, of course, I'm a foghorn.
Welcome to edition 100, part 5 of our Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we're mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison. Why is this 5 parts?
Well, I'm not even totally convinced it's going to finish here.
It has to. I can't take any more. This is ridiculous. There'll be someone out there going, is this going to ever end? There'll be someone waiting. Fuck those people, but...
That poor guy.
That poor one guy.
Do you know what? He wrote something on I think it was my Facebook the other day, on my Facebook page, and he was like, this is killing me, or something like that.
Has he still not listened?
No, God love him.
Oh, God.
Someone said to me as well, I looked down and saw it was Jimmy Savile, haven't listened yet. And I think that's a mediumly weird thing when people tell you, I'm not going to listen to your podcast. You're like, okay, that's fine. You didn't need to tell me. But then they were like, oh, no, because I'm saving it up. I want to do it all in one day.
Oh, okay.
They were like, I feel like Jimmy Savile's one you have to do all in one day. I was like, I feel like you're going to lose your mind if you do that. That'll be an inciting incident.
Well, do you know what? So we're obviously doing this podcast, and we thought, after the Manson family, we thought nothing can drag on that long. And yet here we are. But the other night, obviously we do research for this, and we do stuff. I was lying in bed, I like a bit of Kindle time, relaxing. Reading a fucking book about Jimmy Savile. I'm like, what am I doing? I cannot... it's like I've become conditioned. It's like, that's what I do. Yeah. I read and watch about Jim. That's what I do.
Have you read his book?
The autobiography?
Yeah.
No, I can't. I've not looked for it. I don't think I want to read it.
I think it's probably like getting hold of Mein Kampf, innit?
Yeah,
you feel
yeah.
a bit like... Did I tell you when I was a kid, I got Mein Kampf from the library? But because as a kid, I was very interested, but not in Nazis, but in dictators. So I was very like, how does this happen? And then I became a fucking stand-up comedian. How does a charismatic orator get world domination? No, I was really sort of into it and fascinated by like groupthink and things like that. I'd heard about this book, Mein Kampf, that he'd written, so I was like, so I booked out of the library, but I was so bad. Anyone with ADHD will know this, that a library book is a fucking curse to you because you just forget.
Yeah.
It was one where they had to order in. There was like one in the whole of North Wales, and then they eventually had to contact me and be like, we're worried about how long you've had Mein Kampf for.
What are you up to?
Yeah,
what's going on?
I also went back...
She's either planning or wanking.
That was actually the time that I went back. So maybe I was about 15 then. 15 when I got it out.
Did you read it?
No, I started a bit of it and was like, this guy's a wanker. And
probably
I actually find reading quite hard anyway. Yeah, so didn't grip me, fortunately. No. Could have gone the other way, couldn't it? Imagine the podcast I'd be doing now. I'd have a baseball cap on. So I went to check that out. I was about 15 and went in. Would have been like, I don't know, how old was I when I was 15? 2001, right? And I went, could I get this book? And they said, well, you've got an outstanding book. And I was like, what? Where from? And they said...
She's going, how do you know I've not written it yet?
Yeah, no, they said 1994. And I was like... And everyone laughed behind me. And they were like, because it's a kid's book, we can't charge you for it. But it'd be great if you have. And I knew I had it. I thought, just because no one had contacted me, I was like, they've forgotten.
I'll just keep it.
Well, I just thought they'd forgotten. Like, there's not a system.
They do an amnesty. They did do it at Manchester Library, which I was a member of. Where it's like, look, if you've had any of these books, just bring them back, will you?
Really?
Yeah, and I did that a couple of times because life gets in the way, doesn't it?
It does.
It's a nice idea, a library.
Library is one of the most pure ideas ever.
Yeah, it's great. I love them, and I think they're very important. I like these little free libraries that we have at the end of the street here. So in Walthamstow and other areas of London, it's a very middle-class thing in my opinion, but I do think it's of value. There's little free libraries and you put books in it, and people just swap and take them. Listen, I'm keeping them alive. I'm always putting books in. I got some gel pens the other day, and I didn't like some of the colours, so I thought I'll put them in a little box and I'll put them in there. Someone could take them. What else have I put in? I wanted some toys on a grabber. I put them in.
It's not just a fucking charity shop, mate.
No, but I like it. I like to put things in like that because I think, well, I don't want it. And I'm not going to use it. Yeah, but
this is how it starts. So in the village that my brother used to live in North Wales, they've got one in the middle, like a little library thing. But it got to the point where everyone was like, there's like fucking IKEA furniture in there. They had a sign up going, please stop leaving VHSs.
Well, look,
because there was like 60 of them.
I tell you what, I will continue to do that until someone tells me no. I am keeping that going. If you want me to stop...
One woman charity machine.
If you want me to stop, I will stop. But you will make the children suffer. So if you want that... then that is absolutely fine.
Do you know who you sound like right now?
Jimmy Savile. Right, no problem. If you want me to stop, I can stop, but it will be the children that suffer. Now then.
Oh, we should say, by the way, we're doing a couple of live shows.
Yes.
We always forget to say. So we're going up to the Edinburgh Fringe, and we're doing the 24th of August.
I think it's the 24th.
It's the last Thursday of the Fringe.
Late night.
Late night, baby.
11 o'clock.
Yeah, extended show. That'll be really fun. Of course, before anyone messages, of course we will try and get it streamed. Never think that we're not trying to get something streamed. If we don't manage to do it, it's because it can't have happened, and we will have spent hours of our time trying to make it happen.
It's it can be quite a difficult thing to get.
Someone wrote the other day, were like, I had an idea that maybe you should put some of the shows online because I actually don't live in the UK and I would pay to see it. And I'd be like, what do you think we've been doing for the last couple of fucking years?
I think,
it's come from a sweet place.
I'd really like to see Elton John in his final tour, but I haven't got time to go and tickets are very expensive. I think you should come and play My Back Garden for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think that's good?
Yeah, if you invite me, yeah.
I'll message him. But
and then I'll message him, go and work in a park.
Street. That's so funny because I bet he can't even drive, can I? Imagine him looking through going, David, they're asking me about parking. I don't know why I find that so funny. Anyway, so, yeah, the Fringe, it's going to sell out. I'll tell you that for free now. We've sold a lot of tickets already.
Yeah, and Hackney Empire as well.
Hackney Empire. There's
massive, and it's,
only a few tickets left. So thank you to everyone who's bought tickets.
That's also, Halloween, by the way, Hackney
That is Halloween, on the day. And also, huge thank you to everyone who donates to our Patreon.
Yes.
Every donation is much appreciated, from the small to the large. Everything we're very grateful for. Thank you.
Yeah, it basically covers the cost of the podcast and means that we can keep doing it. So thank you very much.
We got a $200 donation the other day.
What?
Yeah, so thank you so much to the person that did that.
That's so nice.
Yeah, very kind. But also, as I say, every donation is appreciated, big and small, whatever. Thank you so much.
And it also means that's why there's far more podcasts coming out now, because we've employed an editor, which means that we can get things out quicker and do more of them. So thank you.
And might have some exciting news coming soon, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
For those of you with eyes.
Yes, and hands, because we've got some merch chat as well.
Someone will have been offended by that.
Yeah, if you don't have eyes and hands, you're of course welcome to partake in these things as well. Right, should we crack on with this fucking twat? This is going to be talking about his death and the Duchess's death, because we didn't really cover that, and Operation Yewtree. Well, so the holy trinity there of unsavoury fucking dinner party topics.
So the Duchess's mum, obviously.
Not obviously.
Well,
why would you call your mum the Duchess?
Well, it's obvious to people listening to this who the Duchess is now. But when she died, it was strange because they didn't actually have that close a relationship as he was growing up, by all accounts, did they? It was when he got a bit older and he started to get famous and rich that's when the relationship started to be more close.
Well, he said, he was sort of like, he didn't have a great relationship with her growing up, but then he said he raised her for the first half of his life, and in the second half he raised her. That's what he said. But he said it was very sort of complex relationship, and I quote, that she never showed him any tactile affection. So they think there was parental alienation there, which I just found out that's obviously like a widely used term. It's used in the courts as well, but is a guy who like came up with some really fucked up shit, some other sort of like psychological fucked up shit. Maybe is a disgraced psychologist basically, but everyone's still using that phrase that he sort of made up. It was weird, that, isn't it? Of
parental alienation.
Yeah.
Is that like a non-affectionate parent?
Well, no, it can manifest in other ways, but it's where a parent sort of punishes you by withdrawing their affection or their behaviour.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, like,
I was going to say, my dad never hugs or kisses me ever, never has done, and never does. But I think that it doesn't bother me. It's just the way he is.
But do you still feel like he loves you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's I think parental alienation, there's sort of two expressions of it. One is where you think that your parents' love is conditional.
Ah, right, got you.
Whereas I'm sure you know that your dad's love is unconditional, right?
Yeah, I think he thinks I'm all right.
Yeah. And then the other one is you can be accused in a separation of encouraging parental alienation. So like, oh, your dad's this and your dad's that, and he never, so you could be accused of it, and it's
it's funny because Tim, my boyfriend, his family are very, very close. Like, I'm close to my family, but we're not a family that do things together. Like, we never go for meals together or anything like that. We don't hang out as such, you know what I mean? But we are very close. I'm close to my mum and my auntie. My dad, though, we don't. So Tim finds it strange that my dad never says he loves me or anything like that, but it doesn't bother me. not asked. It's just not his vibe. Do you know what I mean? I'm not. But then again, I am a stand-up comedian, so is that where that's manifesting? But like, I don't ever have that. I've got no parent issues. Do you know what I mean? You know, people always presume because you do stand-up, there's something the matter. It's like, well, no, just sometimes you want to do that. There's no. It's just my dad's just my dad, isn't it? He can't be someone he's not.
I also think you're very accepting and understanding of when people behave in a less what's the right phrase, that you wouldn't go, you have to be this to be a dad. You understand that people do things differently.
Yeah, like I understand that my dad's way of showing that he cares is making sure that I get back safe from a gig if I'm, stranded. Or like he drove me to Glasgow. That was so funny. Like I'm sure I've mentioned this on the podcast. When I did my tour show in Glasgow, was it this year? Yeah, this year, Glasgow stand. It was in the afternoon, and because of the train strikes and various other things, I couldn't have got there unless I got a lift, and my dad gave up his tickets to England and Wales.
Oh my God.
Rugby. Yeah, he mentioned it a few times, to take me to this gig, and it was so good. I was on stage, and it was at the time when Rolling Stone magazine gave me the best quote I'd ever had, which was like very much the rock and roll star of British comedy, and I was like, yeah, my mum and dad are outside in the car fucking waiting for me with sandwiches and crisps. Like, yeah, really rock and roll this. But, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not... I find it quite embarrassing if kissing mummy, daddy, and all that kind of crap. It's like, I don't know, I'm not...
It's just different, isn't it? Different families.
It is different, yeah. Very different. But then again, we're always like that with my grandparents. Funny old world, innit?
I spent the last weekend with my dad because he was up for his 80th birthday.
Do you know he looks good for 80?
He does look, considering he's kicked the shit out of his body over the years.
He does. Is he still off the ciggies?
No, he started doing it. He was while he was there because he tried to buy some and my brother went ballistic at him. So he... And then I was like, you're smoking again? And he's like, no. I said, don't lie to me. I said, my brother Kyle said, you were trying to buy cigarettes. He went, oh yeah, I was trying to buy them, but I'm not smoking again. Like, what is it? The mental gymnastics.
That's the kind of thing of like, well, it's not illegal to own the stuff for cannabis, but I'm not growing it.
What, it's illegal to have soil now? Okay, good to know.
He does look good for 80, though.
Yeah, he does.
Good skin.
Good skin,
Very
man.
good skin. Very good skin.
Considering as well, he doesn't, like, wash or moisturise.
Also, your niece, I saw a picture of you. She's the cutest thing.
She's very cute.
Such a traditional kid.
Yeah, she is, isn't she?
She looks like a kid off a soap advert.
Ruddy cheeks, curls. Yeah, she's very cute.
Happy little kid. Love seeing a picture of her enjoying her life.
She's a good girl.
Yeah.
Do you know what? In the car, we were talking about her, and my dad said, oh, she's going to be a heartbreaker. And I went, what a fucking weird thing to say.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that's so weird. And I said, I just hope that she keeps being confident and self-assured and brave. And, I hope she keeps up all that stuff. And he said, oh, well, they're very good with that. And they would build her confidence up. And, you've got to do that with kids. We did that with you, oh, you're wonderful. Oh, you're clever. Aren't you a good girl? He said, you got to tell them this shit, whether you believe it or obviously with you, we believed it. We believed it. But you got to tell it, and to hear him sort of like pull up the plane and like hearing himself flying into
as it's
that.
Going. That's so funny.
Anyway, back to the Duchess.
Yes, the Duchess.
So he did this interview with a psychiatrist that we sort of mentioned before, and Channel 4
was he eating a banana?
I don't know.
Why do I think he was eating a banana? I might have made that up. Just ignore that. Let's gloss over that. I'm not Googling Jimmy Savile banana.
No, let's not. So they lived together in his flat in Leeds up until she died. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he called her the Duchess. Now, after she died, he kept her bedroom and a wardrobe and everything in exactly the way it was before she died. He'd take all the clothes out once a year, have them all dry cleaned, even though they're all sort of kept in plastic. It was basically a shrine. Mm-hmm. You can see that on that Louis Theroux documentary. Now, he says I think we've spoken about this before, but it really sends me under. He does his interview. Excuse me.
It's a very boring interview by the sounds of it there.
Fuck off. In The Independent, and he said that when she died, he said, we hadn't put her away yet, and there she was lying. So to me, they were the good times. They're not the best times. I'd much rather that she hadn't died, but it was inevitable, therefore it had to be. Once upon a time, I had to share it with a lot of people, and we had marvellous times, but when she was dead, she was all mine for me. So therefore, it finished up right, you understand, and then we buried her. But he basically said that the 5 days he had with his mum's body in the flat were the happiest of his life.
I don't think he means necrophilic, do you? I don't think he does. I'm going to give it... Listen,
You're giving him the benefit of the doubt. This is the only heinous thing he wouldn't have done.
I am giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Bearing in mind he was known as being a necrophile.
I know, but I don't think he was an incestuous necrophile.
Right.
Which, in terms of giving someone the benefit of the doubt, is a really shit thing to give them the benefit
It's
of the doubt.
so weird how hardline you are about some things, but not Sir James. Not Sir James and his mother.
I think he was a terrible person and an absolute menace, to put it mildly. But I don't think he would have done that.
Okay.
You do?
Yeah, I do. I think he's...
You do?
I think he's an absolute deviant.
I'm going to have to give him the benefit of the doubt there. I don't think he would have done that.
So, she died, Agnes, in 1972. It was a year after Saville had got an OBE from Buckingham Palace. Now, he says of his mum, "My mother never got round to being proud. If anyone said, 'What is Jimmy like?' she would say, 'I don't know what he's up to, but he's up to something.'" And he said, "She never trusted me as she thought I was going to get nicked and end up in the pokey."
Having said that, though, I think that's quite a northern working class mum sort of way.
I don't think she knew what he was doing.
No, I don't think she knew what he was doing. I think she'd probably been absolutely horrified if she did know. But so I think that's kind of it's kind of thing my gran would have said. I don't know what he's up to, but he's up to something. But or like she'd say about me uncle, "Oh, he's a slice to the sly fox is him." That kind of thing. Like, I just think. Do you know my gran used to say "mad for it"? Like the fucking Gallaghers.
What?
Yeah, she used to say, "Oh yeah, you love that. You'll go mad for it." It's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the only people I've heard say it are my grandma and Liam and Noel Gallagher. It's so weird, like this 80-odd-year-old woman saying "mad for it."
Well, shocked me the other day. We were in a meeting and you dropped the bombshell. By the way, we've been in this meeting with a TV producer at a big sort of prestigious company. Second sentence, Rachel went, "Oh, do you know Liam Gallagher's had a double hit replacement?"
Yeah, did you not know that?
No.
Did I not tell you about what Ian Stone said to me? So, gigged with Ian Stone, comedian. I've got onto the subject of music because he's really into the jam and stuff like that. And we talked about Oasis, and he said, "Oh, do you know, I saw Liam Gallagher in the, what's that shopping centre, the big one in, is it like
Westfield?
Blue or Westfield or somewhere, like about 15 years ago." And he said it was when he was with an Appleton, and they were just walking through, and he said he was walking through as he expects Liam Gallagher to be walking through. And he went, and I just started doing Pilates at the time, and I looked at him and I thought, if you carry on walking like that, you're going to have terrible hip problems. And I really wanted to tell him. I went, "Do you know he's had a double hip replacement?" He went, "You see, I could have prevented it."
Oh my God. So you think it's the swagger?
Yeah, because Ian Stone was like, if he carries on walking like that,
that's so funny.
He's going to have hip problems. But yeah, he's had a double hip replacement, Liam. And he's back out there.
Swaggering his way around.
Swaggering around, ruining his new hips.
Wearing down that fiberglass.
Wearing it down.
Old tin hips there.
Oh, how unrock and roll, innit? So he tweeted about it. He's like, "Right, yeah, I'm going in for a double hip replacement, but don't worry, I'll be back."
Fucking hell.
What were we saying?
Jimmy Savile.
Jimmy Savile.
So the Duchess has died. We've sort of covered that.
Yes, the Duchess has died.
And we're on different sides of the fence when it comes to him.
Yes.
Having a go.
I just hope that he didn't. And I just there has to be some hope in this story.
I think it would have been like the final, because he'd done everything else.
Is that not the most taboo thing you can do?
Exactly. But then he's the boss level, isn't he, of perverse.
To be honest, it's not even a subject that you would even contemplate at any point in your life. Defiling your mother's.
Oh God! Well, a lot of them did. Ed Kemper.
Oh God, yeah.
Do you know what we're talking about? Is her saying she didn't trust him. I get that because do you know what? A thing that comes up again and again from people is you never knew who he was. Like how he was on stage, where he's sort of jabbering away, talking nonsense, and not you ducking and weaving. Is how he was off stage. So he didn't have any friends. He was a loner. He's out all the time. He's got several places he lives. There's this mad thing where he talks about having. In fact, let me find it. But he talks about, in an interview, he says, "I have a bag packed ready to go." Do you know about this? His bug out bag, basically. Let me Google this.
His what?
Bug out. You know what a fucking bug out bag is?
I do not know what a bug out bag
Rachel
is.
Fairburn.
What's a fucking bug out bag?
A bug out bag it's for people who believe in sort of an apocalyptic event.
Oh, okay, right. You and watch all those.
Don't make it. Go on.
Oh, right, okay.
Go on, explain it.
You can buy them £204 for 4 people. It's a bug-out bag. It's like for an emergency. If Putin decides to press the button.
It's basically an
Survival.
end-of-world event that happens.
Oh, right, okay.
You have a bag packed ready to go. It's like, you know, when people are going to give birth and they have a bag packed ready for the hospital. It's that for the end of the world. So you might have cable tidies in it, you know, like water purification tablets, first aid kit.
So now, I will always associate... This is going to be one of those things that now you've said it, I'll hear about it everywhere.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But now I'll associate the bug-out bag with you, as I always think of you when I see carabiners.
Why me?
Because you said carabiners on this podcast about 8 years ago, and I was like, what the fuck are they? And you told me, and now I know what they are, so whenever I see them, I think, oh, Kiri.
Wow, love that.
Carabiners. So he had this bag packed. To go
Sorry, I
where?
was just searching Jimmy Savile packed bag, and the first thing that comes up is a thing on Redbubble, which is this is fucked up. It says Jimmy Savile bags for sale, and it's a tote bag with a Jim will fix it thing with Kia fixed it on it, because you know they're trying to link Keir Starmer to Jimmy Savile. Just fucking...
You're not going to link that, because it's not...
Well, like mad people fucking say anything. They'll ignore the fact that she spent all that time with Margaret Thatcher, and then, yeah.
Do you know, I once saw a woman... I might mention this on the podcast many years ago. It was when I worked at the library, so it was a long, long time ago. A woman with a tote bag that had Myra Hindley on it.
What?
And I was like, I don't know what to do here.
Bush.
Of all cities to have it in as well.
Yeah. He basically... Where was it? It was an interview I was reading. God, that poor guy who'd spent all that money on Jimmy Savile's Rolls Royce, and it's worth nothing. There's a thing here from Wales Online. Mike Stevens, who is... folk singer. I believe he's Hugh Stevens, the DJ's dad. Lovely Hugh Stevens. And he's also responsible for a graffiti in Wales. It's very famous. It's like a little stone barn and the walls painted red, and it says Cofiwch Tryweryn on it. And Tryweryn is a mutation of Tryweryn, and that was the village, area that was flooded to create a reservoir for Liverpool. And Cofiwch means to remember.
Right, yeah.
So it's like, don't forget that they will drown us if they want water. It's a fucking story here saying that the TV presenter offered folk legend Mike Stevens underage girls to abuse in the back of his Rolls Royce.
Wow.
Absolutely fucking...
Hate the term underage girls.
Oh, yeah, children. Oh, yeah.
I hate it.
Isn't that so weird that I just... How normalised it is to... Oh,
underage
God.
girls.
Yeah, children.
I hate that term, underage girls.
I'm trying to find this thing. Basically, I don't want to get the...
I'm just intrigued by the bug-out bags now.
So he's...
I feel like I need one.
So basically, he said he was always ready. He was like... It was very weird. It was an interview where he's like, I'm ready to go at any point. He's like, I basically have a bag with like £10,000 cash, some clothes in. I have like a fresh Rolls Royce, like in France or something like that. So he's like, oh, if it all goes on the pot, I could just go there. And so he was always ready to get found out. He'd like made arrangements for it.
Maybe stop, or don't do it in the first place.
Yeah, but why would he stop? He was literally on call.
Fucking hell. I wonder what was in his bag. Cigars. A tracksuit top.
God. One roll-on.
Do you know... There's the book that I've read several times, Hiding in Plain Sight. Is it Dan Davies, the guy who wrote it? Very good book. And there's some of the details really funny. But, you know, it's like he'll be in a cafe eating dinner with Jimmy Savile, and he'll be like... And he's eating egg on toast, he's got egg in his teeth. You know, that kind of thing. It's really disgusting. So the Duchess has died.
Yes.
He carries on
doing
whatever he's doing.
At this time, then, well, his Duchess dies in the 70s, we just didn't cover it. And so the net starts to close in about 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Where some women come forward to the story, police force, we've covered this, and say stuff at Duncroft happened. 3 other witnesses came forward, corroborated it. Mm-hmm. Now, Newsnight had been investigating him before he died. It was about the Duncroft stuff.
And the chap, what's his name? that did the...
Oh, Mark. He's got a Welsh name. Is it Thomas Williams or something like that?
Mark Williams Thomas.
That's it, Mark Williams Thomas. So he is a journalist and a police officer, investigator.
Ex-copper.
So he had been investigating him. Now, Newsnight managed to get a woman to go on record and interview her on camera.
Yes, and she was quite poorly, wasn't she, that?
Yes.
Yes, the lady who was ill.
Now, very late into production...
Because this woman had cancer.
Oh, really?
And they were interviewing her, and it took a lot for her to have to do this, but because she was so poorly, she was like, I need to get this story out there. And they interviewed her, and she told her story. And then, of course...
It was meant to go out in December, and then very late in production, it gets pulled. Now, the BBC said this is because, you know, in terms of CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, there isn't enough evidence here, which is an editorial thing. So, like, if there's not enough evidence for them to do a conviction or investigate it properly, then we can't run a story on, which is not true. Like, there has been other things where they're doing one at the moment, you know, that person...
They're not.
Yeah, because I was contacted by a journalist about it the other day. So they're going...
So the same person I was contacted by.
Oh, really? No, different one.
Who?
The big one.
Oh, were you?
So, yeah.
I got contacted about.
Oh, really?
But I had a story, but I was like, it's not my...
Yeah.
And this is second-hand information.
I just ignored it. I know someone who spoke to them, though, and it's a journalist, and they're working with a channel and a paper, and they're trying to sort of, like, break the story, even though there's obviously there's super injunctions, obviously, but there's not enough to go to CPS with it. Now, this is what's really
Can I just say, though, when that journalist phoned me, I just felt like saying... You fucking ring me about this. Can you just review me at some fucking point, please? Do you want to come and watch my show? Actually, I should have said, I'll tell you what, you come and review my show and you give me a 4 off.
Oh, well, I think they actually did the story. They broke the story and they got an award for it.
Did they put that story out?
Yeah. About...
Okay, yeah. That story did go out.
Yeah.
But we'll have to bleep that name.
But it's
because of what I've just said.
Yeah.
So bleep all names, please.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So there's this woman who gives, obviously it must have been absolutely harrowing. It's scheduled to go out, got TX date, and it just gets pulled. So the BBC say it's because the Crown prosecution sort of
Also, I must say, you do know I was joking about saying, I'll give you information if you come and review me. That was a joke. I don't want anyone to think that I'm that kind of fucking grub. I'd rather die than behave like that. Just to get that
I'd rather
out there.
die than have anyone else ever review me, so it's fine.
Well, I'd rather die than do backhanders. No, just getting that out there. Continue.
My problem with this, and this will become a reoccurring problem, is they go, oh, well, the CPS wouldn't take it any further. But the burden of proof is incredibly high, because we don't just have beyond reasonable doubt, it's beyond all doubt here. Mm-hmm. And it's innocent until proven guilty, which is some of the problem which occurs later on with the Yewtree investigation, which we'll discuss. But that basically going, of course, I mean, sex crimes, any kind of like sexual violence, as particularly against like women and children, is very hard to get a prosecution. So just because things aren't a prosecution, that doesn't mean that person didn't do the crime. It means there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. Historical added to that, it's even more difficult. So that's what they said publicly. Off the record, they said, do you know what? It's because the accusations were so fucking mad.
That's what I was just going to say, because everything is so... And the rumours... And obviously you can't convict somebody on a fucking rumour. But like you say, the accusations are so awful and so like, what?
Bonkers, yeah.
He was doing what in a hospital?
Yeah.
That's the other thing I was going to say. It just seems so
They also
wild.
think that because some of the on-camera sort of interview said that she was abused at Television Centre, backstage at Clunk Click, and that other celebrities had abused girls from Duncroft and the BBC premises. They think that is why it was like, oh, shit.
Well, Gary Glitter, for one.
Yeah. Well, loads. We're going to go through them. So, do you know what I think is really weird when they talk about Jimmy Savile is they all say, never married, he was a lifelong bachelor. Like, I don't think we're calling him a bachelor. He's a lifelong paedophile is what he is.
He was a lifelong paedophile, lifelong sex offender, lifelong weirdo.
Yeah.
Lifelong freak.
Freak's quite a strong word, but I think it was right in this, yeah.
Isn't it?
Now, he does talk about his sex life in his autobiography. Yeah. That's why it's called As It Happens. I thought you would have read it. He says that he slept with loads of women. He said he had sex on slag heaps, desks, planes, boats.
Slag heaps, you can't call them that. Boats, planes, did you say?
Yeah. Yeah, desks, planes, boats, loads of other weird places. Such a weird thing to put in your book.
I just feel ill thinking about him. But that's why I used to wear tracksuit bottoms, innit? Because he was always ready for it.
Oh, God.
That's why they said it was like...
Are you serious?
Yeah, apparently this is one of the reasons that...
So he could whip it down?
So he could just... Yeah.
Oh, my fucking God.
It's horrible.
That is
why
awful.
does this keep getting worse?
Yeah, every detail is horrific, isn't it?
It just makes me feel so sick.
Now, there's a singer that said to the Mirror in 2012, her name is Donna Foote. I think, especially if she was a singer back then, it's not a very showbiz name, is it?
No, it's not, is it?
Poor old Donna. She said that she was with him for 17 years. It was funny, they say she had a 17-year relationship with a paedophile.
Oh, God.
But she had an abortion by him as well, with termination. She said she didn't know about any crimes and was obviously like horrified when she found out.
It's interesting that, because I would have assumed that he would have had a vasectomy.
I think at some point he probably did.
Because if he was carrying
high
on...
risk, innit?
Yeah, carrying on like this, I mean, that the probability of him getting a victim pregnant...
Yeah.
Very high.
So he had health problems ongoing. In 1997, he had a heart bypass operation.
Triple.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
It lasted 3 hours. It was in Leeds at Killingbeck Hospital. In 2011, he went to the hospital with pneumonia. Mm-hmm. And then October 29th of that year...
2 days before his birthday.
Yeah, before he was 85.
Which, never forget, is Halloween.
Yeah. He was found dead in Roundhay at his house, and it was his 2 nephews who told the press.
So, do you know, you reminded me of this, because everything about Jimmy Savile is so weird and disgusting and creepy. But this is something that I did know that you reminded me of before. He used to go to bed with his fingers crossed.
So his arms were crossed over him, like, you know, you'd see Dracula in sort of like a film.
And he had his fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed lying on his back, and that's apparently how he was found.
I hate it.
It's so awful, isn't it?
Smiling, no doubt.
Yeah.
Grinning.
Got away with it.
With his last cigar was next to his bed.
God.
It's actually quite comfortable, this. I'm actually reenacting
she's actually doing it right now.
It's actually quite comfortable. I might start sleeping like that.
Fucking hell.
Dead.
Dead, yeah.
Dead.
So this is 2011.
Also, this is what annoys me about him. As we'll say towards the end of this, if we ever get to the end of it, he even gets to die peacefully at home.
That is your dream death, isn't it?
Isn't that what everybody wants?
Yeah, at home, with your fingers crossed.
Peacefully at home. And he, this awful paedophile, this awful man, this menace to society, gets to die peacefully at home.
There's no justice.
This is why there's no God, I'm convinced. Have you heard that clip of him saying about, well, when I die, if I get to things, St. Peter says I can't get in, I'll knock him out.
Fucking hell. He's always been a weird-looking guy, but when he towards the end, he looks like, you know, a newborn bird.
Yeah.
When they're all just sort of like mad eyes and like
big eyes
spindly
and sort of
arms.
veiny and all.
Yeah.
That's when I saw him. I saw him must have been about 2 years before he died. Leaning driving
when you were
his Rolls
driving.
Royce, like sort of hunched over the wheel with a cigar in his mouth.
Fucking horrible.
Smoking with the window shut. It just gets worse.
So, huge event when he died.
National news.
BBC had 2 tribute shows. One on the radio, one on the TV.
Yeah. He'd already planned this, his funeral.
Was he the one who planned it?
Yeah, he planned all this. So he had a gold coffin. I'm not going to criticise that, because I like a bit of flamboyance, as do you.
Yeah.
Listen, his taste wasn't a problem most of the time. Some of those tracksuits were pretty good.
Yeah.
You know...
I looked at a picture earlier and he was in a pair of blue and yellow feely shorts and I was like, I'd wear those.
Yeah, this is the problem. You know, I'm looking
That's
at
not the problem, Rachel.
Well, part of the problem is I'm looking at things going, I would wear that. 100% I would wear that. But gold coffin, and it was in the Queen's Hotel in Leeds, obviously his hometown and place that he was from. And that was on display, like as if he was some sort of royal.
It was basically like a state funeral that people would file past.
5,000 people went to see.
That's mad. And then there was a select few who would go into the room with it, which is the person that I know that went there.
Really?
Yeah, because he knew him, didn't he?
It's so fucking weird. So weird. The last cigar that he'd smoked before he died was put on an ashtray on the casket.
Right.
He wanted to be buried with the Duchess, his mother, but unfortunately that plot was full. Just full of other siblings. Now, the day of the funeral, it was a huge Roman Catholic funeral. There was some celebrities there. Frank Bruno, bless him.
Poor fucking guy.
I feel so bad for Frank Bruno.
Yeah, because he's clearly a nice lad, isn't he?
He's just a nice guy, isn't he, you know. Mike Reed, the DJ. Didn't he do the...
Race at UKIP thing?
UKIP, that
Calypso,
was it.
like, basically send them back, sort of.
Something UK Calypso, wasn't
Yeah, it was Brexit, yeah.
The cardiologist from Leeds General Infirmary, he was he gave a eulogy. There was about 3 eulogies, actually. What a fucking long day.
Catholics always make everything long, though, don't they?
Fucking hell, I know. As they drove through Leeds, as the funeral procession went through Leeds, crowds were out in the streets, were shouting, Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy.
I bet everyone denies they were there. It's a reverse Woodstock.
Me? No. Yeah, exactly, innit? Yeah. Not me. Jimmy who? Never heard of him.
Condolences were offered publicly as well by the then Prince Charles and Camilla, now King Charles and Queen.
I don't want to be fair to the royal family. Well, they didn't have I don't think they wouldn't have had a fucking clue.
I think they genuinely just think that's what working class people are like.
Exactly. And I will stress we are not like that.
Also, if your brother's Prince Andrew, your fucking barometer for what's normal behaviour's way out, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, of all the people that would have known, you know, the royal family don't want to stick up for them. They would not have. They wouldn't have known.
No, they're in a separate bubble, aren't they?
Yeah, and they, you know, he would have been very respectful with them, wouldn't he? Because he needed their approval. He was buried in Scarborough, which is a seaside town that you like.
I like it. Well, I've been there once on a little weekend break. There was blood on the sheets, sure.
I remember you saying this.
But I like...
Before or after?
Before, sadly. Yeah, I've got a lot of time for it. I love any sort of Victorian faded glamour town. Whitby.
I find it...
Actually, Whitby is its own thing. It's not one of those.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Scarborough. I remember doing an awful gig there. Did you ever do that gig in the hotel?
No, was it Jules?
I think so, yeah. Hated it. Absolute waste of my time. And
good fee though, isn't it? So it's like 400 quid because it's fucking miles away.
It was a long time ago. I don't think I mean, this was about 9 years ago, maybe. I don't know. I find the Victorian hotels quite, on the clifftop quite.
That's where I stayed.
Foreboding.
The one that's in the shape of a V
is that the one
for Queen Victoria? Yeah.
I just found it quite like ugh. But it could have been because I was going in to do a gig that I didn't want to do. That is probably...
That'll do it, yeah.
So, Scarborough, seaside town. In Yorkshire, he was buried at a 45-degree angle.
It was so funny. You were reading something earlier. You were like, he was buried. You were reading the comment section of the Daily Mail article underneath it, and someone was like, "Oh, what to be buried at 45 degrees? What an animal!" Yeah. And I was like, "Why? What was it? A fucking heat wave?" And I got the wrong degrees.
I have to say as well, I ain't got a fucking clue about degrees. When people go 90 degrees, I'm like, I don't know what.
Isn't it like when it's really hot? It's like 21 here.
No, I mean like degrees of like like angles. I ain't got a clue. Some people go, can you put your leg at a 45 degree? I'm like, can you just show me? Because I don't know.
180 is half, right? And then a quarter is 90. So it's...
I only know what a 45 degree angle is because of Jimmy Savile being buried at one. That's the only way that I know what that is.
I only know how big a pizza is because of how cocks are.
Oh my God.
Is that bad?
6-inch pizza.
Yeah. They'll be like, oh, I think I might get a 9-inch. I'm like, fucking come on, get a 12. You absolute pussy.
What have you called them, like? By names. Do you want a Robert? Or a Paul? Paul or Robert, which one? So
I'll have a Dave and you can have half.
Let's not go into stuffed crust.
Yeah. Your fucking reputational checks going down the Swanee, mate.
Oh, I've not mentioned this, have I?
Can you mention it?
I can mention it. I can't say. So basically, I'm not going to say who it was or what it was for or anything. But I got a company contacted me about a job.
They approached you?
They approached me. I was like, yeah, I'm free. That sounds good. Delicious amount of money. Lovely. And then I forgot about it because, as you know, what happens in this industry
showbiz.
A lot, showbiz, darling, is you hear something and never get your hopes up. Just go, okay, and then forget about it. And if it comes to fruition, it's a lovely surprise. So I was like, I completely forgot about it. And then I got a message off my agent, and it was... Well, unfortunately, you failed a reputational check. They found some of the stuff that you talk about on the podcast apparently a bit spicy. Someone else is doing it, and that's great. And I never begrudge anybody work, and I'm very happy for them. But they have done material about taking drugs in the past, and that's absolutely fine for them.
And they've got a podcast where they talk about all sorts.
So, yeah, exactly. And I have... So, basically...
But they are... What's the crucial difference?
A man. They don't like ladies talking about...
So you've got to give to the Patreon, because Rachel's just lost fucking probably tens of thousands of pounds.
You know what, though? I'm not even pissed off, because I just find it quite funny. I'm gonna do some stuff about it in my show, I think, but I can't say anything, because I was telling Jeanette, my agent... me and my agent, Jeanette, were laughing about it yesterday. And I said, well, it's good. She went, please don't mention who it is. Please don't. I'm like, I'm not going to say who it is, what it is. I'm just going to say that I failed a reputational check. I texted my mum about it, and I just texted my mum like that. I just explained it, and all my mum wrote was, bastards.
Well, also, we were talking about is their reputation's not fucking squeaky.
Yeah, if you really did something, but it's cool. We're all good. To be honest with you, I don't think I wanted to do it anyway.
Maybe it's made a nice decision for you.
Yeah, I think sometimes your gut instinct is... I'm really worried because I think I sent an audition tape off the other day for like an advert. You know, you have to do a self. I'm terrible at these things because I'm not an actor, you know. I sent this thing off, and I'm 80% sure that I put a file that was just me going, I fucking hate doing this, and cutting it off. I'm 80% sure.
That's so funny. I hope you get it.
I won't.
They're like, we loved your sass.
Really love the improv. Anyway, 45 degrees. He was buried with his Royal Marines medal and a Green Beret.
Because he got an honorary Green Beret from the Marines.
Yeah, because he
claimed he did the fucking test, and they were like, no, we just gave it to a civilian for charity work.
As an ex-smoker, I don't think even he could have done that, no way. Also, if anyone who works on the programme, what's it called, SAS...
You're desperate to do that.
Fucking hell, I would love to do that. It's not often I watch things and go, I want to do that. I want to go on the SAS thing where they do all the training and they have to go through the desert with backpacks and all that kind of stuff. I can just see me, Stacey Solomon, the GC. You know, I can see it. We'll get in a gang. We'll enjoy it.
I can't think of anything worse.
I think I'd love it. I'd love it. I'd either die or thrive. So he had his Help for Heroes wristband on as well.
Oh yeah, those little rubber ones that people fundraise, which is your every now and then you'll mention, I think Jimmy Savile down there with that little rubber band on his arm.
Honestly, this is what I think about. So, but bear in mind as well, he was buried encased in concrete.
Which is unusual as a request.
Very unusual.
He knew it was going to come out.
So he's buried in one of his favourite tracksuits as well. So if you think about it, whatever you're doing, and I said this at the live show, and this does pop into my head every so often. And also, do you remember a listener, someone who came to the live show, made his girlfriend on Christmas Day a skeleton of Jimmy Savile in a tracksuit?
Oh my God, that's so funny.
It was so funny. If the person's listening, will you send us the picture again? Because it was really funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, so whatever you're doing in your life, if you're having a good time, if you're having a bad time, you know, whatever is happening, just remember that there is a skeleton at a 45-degree angle on a hill in Scarborough in a cemetery, looking out to sea, wearing a tracksuit and a Help for Heroes wristband with a green beret on. 2 This Is Your Life books.
Yeah.
And a cigar.
Now, when the crimes came out, they removed the headstone, and it says
let me just say as well, the family have said there's no bling in the coffin.
Okay. Oh, so
all
people
of his jewellery, yeah.
Well, the headstone which said it was good while it lasted, which I think is a reference to all the diddling.
Well, it was good while it lasted, which is the entire time you were alive.
Yeah.
This is a story about a man who completely got away with it.
Which is so rare that there's no comeuppance.
He got away with it.
Yeah.
If you are a nonce, this is inspirational.
Yeah, this is absolutely. This is your sort of like, I was going to say Lance Armstrong, but he's disgraced now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't even think of an inspiration. He's a paedophile's Malala.
A paedophile's Malala sounds like a delicious drink.
With loads of mango in it.
Yeah, delicious. Oh, paedophiles. Can I have 2 paedophiles Malalas, please?
That's a new thing. Instead of a filthy baby at live shows, we'll serve a paedophile's Malala.
Did I ever tell you about when I did... It was a podcast and Gordon Brown's wife, Sarah Brown, was on, who's a very prolific
journalist,
very, very lovely, which came to my show.
Oh, wow.
Very nice woman.
Very clever.
She brought her son as well, and he was too young to be in there, but I'm not going to... He seemed to enjoy it. Anyway, did this podcast with her, and it was a live podcast, and there's me. There was Jess Foster-Q, Sarah Brown. So we just... And it was in Edinburgh. Me and Jess Foster-Q telling these stories like... and then I fell on my bum, things like that. And then Sarah Brown was like... Yes, I remember when I was working with Malala. I was like, we are on the wrong
fucking hell.
This isn't working. I was like, I came out feeling worthless.
So he was, encased in concrete. Now the headstone, it was good while it lasted, was removed once the story broke.
Yes.
But I don't think he was removed, so everyone still knows where he was.
How can you remove it?
Buried. You just don't have a headstone to desecrate. I bet kids go up and drink on it.
Halloween, his birthday.
Doing Ouija boards on it, yeah.
Now then.
Stop it. So about a year after he died, the 3rd of October 2012, ITV, bearing in mind BBC had the scoop first and sort of, for whatever reason...
Put the kibosh on it.
An ITV documentary called Exposure, The Other Side of Jimmy Savile was... released, and that was the one that was researched and presented by Mark Williams Thomas. Yes. It was the BBC one, it was Newsnight. So this is where all hell breaks loose and his reputation is sort of readjusted and everything goes fucking...
Can't defame the dead.
Well, yeah, everything goes absolutely bonkers. His estate, which had millions... Oh, sorry, I'm just moving my back.
Having a stretch?
Yeah, I'm just sort of adjusting.
Stretching to get into it, are you?
Yeah, just
taking a run up.
Just warming up for this stuff, yeah. So everything goes mad. People start coming forward, and then this is where they start. Based on this, I mean, there's all sorts. We've been through them all, but there's an investigation by Surrey Police. There's an investigation into Duncroft, but then this is what spawns the Operation Yewtree. Mm-hmm. Now,
which may I tell the joke?
Go on.
So there's a joke that went round at the time, and I think it's a very, very good joke. So Rolf Harris...
Wouldn't it make sense if he was an Irish barman?
If you want it to be Irish, okay.
Yeah, I think it makes the joke work better.
Rolf Harris, Max Clifford and Jimmy Savile walk into an Irish bar and the barman says, "Not Yewtree again."
That works better, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're right. I knew it. You told me it and I was like, fucking hell. And as soon as you... there was a moment where I was like, it should be Irish, it works better. But I was like, don't workshop the horrible joke.
There's a joke that I think's really funny, and I can't remember the setup. I can only remember the punchline, and it's a rude joke about a choir boy or something. It's a cannon went off in his face, and I can't remember.
So you can remember the punchline that you're laughing at, but you can't remember the joke, which is all the context. Okay.
Anyway, if anyone knows the setup, please let me know.
That should be a new podcast of just reading out punchlines. Does anyone know the setup for these? I might do it with the notes I've got on my phone and be like, has anyone got an idea of what this was about? Now,
I thought that I'd improve notes on my phone when I stopped drinking.
Terrible.
Still a pit of insanity. I'm like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, it is. When you're like, what do you mean? What's Bunch of Roses doll? Yeah. Vivaldi, and I'm like, what the fuck is that about?
No idea.
And I'll be like, I'll know what it is from that.
You never do.
Never do. Now then, you got a theory, or you heard a rumour about why it was called Operation Yewtree, right?
Yeah, because they said that the yew tree has so many roots. And is it a poisonous tree?
It is poison. It's one of the trees, Rachel. You'll know this from your days of stable management at the Pony Club, like me. But it's one of the sort of three main, very poisonous things to horses.
Ragwort.
Ragwort is, yeah.
There you go.
The others, yeah.
Buttercups, I believe, as well.
I think to be honest, they tend to leave stuff alone, except my horse, which is the thick cunt, would eat ragwort. But Yewtree, ragwort, and then what's the other one? Is it like mistletoe or something? Or do I think that Yewtree and mistletoe look alike? There's a third one I can't quite remember right now, but it's very poisonous.
And that's why all your horses are dead.
That's why they're all dead.
The rumour was that it was called Yewtree because it's a poisonous tree, but also because all the roots of a yew tree, wind and get tangled and all the rest of it.
So that it's far-reaching and like... Yeah, okay.
But that's not true. It was just a random...
Do you know what I feel sorry for in all this? The yew tree.
Yeah.
That was a perfectly nice sort of garden shrub.
Where did I see there's a place called Yewtree Cottage? Change the name.
Yeah, that's done.
All you think about is Rolf Harris now.
You're not staying in that Airbnb.
Absolutely
seen that in another one.
No.
And, you know, there'll be someone out there who just had a farm selling Yewtrees, and that's completely done. So, yeah, Yewtree. So they say it was chosen from a list of names which are sort of meant to be neutral and unrelated to the case. And they've used that system since the 80s, so it'll just be a list of sort of random words. Whereas operations that are meant to sort of deal with a specific crime or set of crimes will be given a sort of proactive name that has sort of connected to what they're doing. So Operation Hydrant, which is obviously putting out the fire, comes after this and is a huge investigation into historical child abuse. I'll get to that in a bit. So the criminal investigations, Operation Yewtree, was basically led by Detective Chief Inspector Michael Orchard.
Why is everything so tree-based?
And Chief and Superintendent Keith Niven, was the head of the Met Police's child abuse investigation. So by December 2012, bearing in mind this only started in October 2012, there were 30 officers who were involved in the case. Now, later on, people go on to criticise Yewtree as taking up too much of police's time and resources, and there's a lot of backlash against Yewtree.
What else would the police be doing? Ignoring abuse?
Ignoring abuse, yeah, that's true. Now, there's a lot of back and forth between the Met Police and the South Yorkshire Police, and the South Yorkshire Police were given files in relation to people who were then certainly didn't meet, I'm going to use it rather than more like found innocent, not that I'm saying I know anything about any of these people, but they didn't meet the threshold for evidence, which can mean they're absolutely innocent, and I'm sure there's a load of names I'm going to say here that are, but it can also mean that there just wasn't enough evidence and they weren't innocent. Cliff Richard is one of them. I'm trying to say everything is neutral because I don't know anything about these people. North Yorkshire Police investigated Jimmy Savile. Neither of them resulted in any charges. They were found, there was not enough to prosecute them all. There was absolutely no evidence. And then June 2016, Clement Freud had been involved in this, and then it all came out.
After his death?
Yeah, after his death, that he was, again, a prolific child abuser.
Yeah.
It's mad, that family is... Because he's Sigmund Freud, and Emma Freud, who's married to Richard Curtis, right?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of them. There's Bella Freud, the fashion designer.
They're everywhere. They're incredibly well-connected, famous family.
Lucian Freud, the artist.
Oh yeah, loads of old money there.
Yeah.
Which is sort of exactly what you lazily expect people who are child abusers to have those connections to get away with. Apparently, Yewtree had been given information about Clement Freud. I remember being on Just a Minute and stuff like that. Yeah, I remember listening to him and he was very sort of...
I just remember that famous picture of him with the Basset Hound.
Oh yeah, yes.
Was it a Basset Hound or a Bloodhound?
It's quite iconic, isn't it? Yeah. So they've been given information on him in 2012.
Wow.
4 years after it all came out. So there were two kids who'd basically made accusations to the NSPCC. The NSPCC had been massively involved in this as well, because I didn't realise that lots of kids, that's the first place that they go, especially when it was a very big charity. I think kids now would say Childline. But, you know, it was a very big charity when we were growing up. The NSPCC was like the play. I'm going to call the NSPCC on you. I would think and never say to my mother, she'll fucking knock me out.
The NSPCC. I'm going to phone Child... Yeah, we'd say phone... I'm going to phone Childline.
Yeah. Was that Esther Ranson?
That was Esther Ranson, who claims she didn't know anything about.
Yeah, it was obviously... She's very good friends with Jimmy Savile and was horrified because her whole role was in protecting children.
Yes.
I think that must have been very difficult for people who were obviously, like, used by him.
Yeah.
To create sort of a, I'm a good guy, and then they find out that, like, this was happening.
Ugh.
William Roach, Ken from Corrie, also.
Ken Barlow.
Yeah.
He's 92 or something now.
What? Do you remember there being an article a few years ago? Was that I've slept with 3,000 women?
Yeah.
In the Daily Mail.
Awful. Yeah, 3,000 women.
Yeah.
And
it's like more than Mick Jagger or something.
Oh, God.
I wouldn't say it's the same calibre as Mick Jagger.
Did I send you that picture of Mick Jagger in the baseball hat very recently? Did you not send you this? And it said DILF on it.
Gilf, more like.
Exactly like Gilf, yeah, but he had
Gilf.
DILF
written
on his hat. And I was just like, I can't, this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
I think that's horrible anyway.
Eh?
That's just a horrible hat.
It's a horrible hat. Horrible. Like, and also he's out for the day with his family. It's like, can you just have a day out without mentioning fucking? Do you know what I mean? Like,
can your kids have a picnic without you dragging your horrible old cock into it?
Absolutely.
Not in the picnic.
Well, I just was like, oh, can you not just... But I think I put it on Instagram stories like, what the fuck is this? Paul McCaffrey, very good comedian friend of mine, he messaged me, he was like, I want one. And then he found it online. I don't know if he got it. I hope he didn't.
Michael Lavelle was also questioned.
Kevin from Corrie.
With Kevin from the garage. And Dr. Fox.
Dr. Fox.
I think he was found guilty and then innocent. I think it was maybe appealed over to...
Dr. Fox, for anyone listening in America, is not a doctor.
No.
And he's not a fox either.
What is he, a DJ?
He's a DJ, yeah. He used to present the Pepsi chart show, didn't he?
Loads of DJs were implicated in it. And you've got a list there, haven't you?
Freddie Starr, the comedian, who's now deceased. Jimmy Tarbuck's dead as well, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah, Jimmy Tarbuck's dead.
I think his daughter is uniquely talented and massively underrated.
Wonderful on the radio.
Fucking brilliant on the radio. She's in Bridget Christie's new series,
Effortless,
which is
on the radio. Lisa Tarbuck,
and she's great in it.
When she does, the way she does, like, and so and so is written in with a funny little story here. I love the way she does it. Like it when she squeezes the dog toys as well for the dogs. She's good. She's the only thing I listening to on radio. She was in the League of Gentlemen Christmas thing about solutions.
Fucking brilliant. In the line dancing one.
Was she in that, or was she in the solutions one?
Well, isn't it that... It's the same...
Is that the same episode?
That they go and... Yeah, that there's a
the
secret...
The voodoo doll.
Yeah. She's brilliant in it.
Of course, that's the same episode.
And there's a scene where she's on the toilet and, like, she's got a mole.
Yeah.
It's just great. She's just so brilliant.
I always think of that whenever I see those craft masks.
Yeah.
Solutions.
Now...
Jim Davidson.
Well, I've got a lot to say about these people.
Okay.
So, Freddie Starr was arrested 4 times and bailed 9 times and then told there's no charges. And he said... basically, there was a big uproar where... I mean, Stephen Fry spoke out about it, but a lot of people saying...
What's he butting in for? Does he have to get in on everything?
Yeah, if he's not giving a quote on a book.
Fucking hell.
Do you know who's the new one of those? And we'll have to beat this. Fucking... There's nothing you won't give a quote to.
Yeah. Yeah, beat that, but yeah.
I was looking at a sandwich the other day in the shop and I was like, oh, he's giving a fucking... He said this BLT is infinitely eatable and relatable.
Inspiring.
with warm notes of bacon.
It's so true though, isn't it?
Ate it all in one sitting. So basically there was loads of people going, this is unfair, because their names were being publicly sort of like said, and then their reputations are, because it's obviously such a toxic thing, being trashed and then losing income. Cliff Richard as well was someone who was sort of spoke out about how difficult it was.
He sued the BBC, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Because, so August 2014, his property was searched and he had a barrister speaking out for him who said, listen, there were so many delays before, and there was like rolling coverage on the news of his house being searched, and then a massive delay before announcing that there's no charges. He said this is against people's human rights to keep them hanging on like this. It's incredibly stressful. You know, you're tarnishing their reputation for absolutely nothing. Also, what was happening is people were losing faith in the police because they weren't... Like, all these names are coming and no one's getting prosecuted, but that is the problem with the law and the burden of proof, but obviously we should keep a very high burden of proof. And they basically started doing their fucking classic Magna Carta! Magna Carta!
God. Yeah, Magna
You've
Carta.
lost... When you start quoting the Magna Carta, you've lost the high ground, I think.
I don't even know. I mean, I do know what it is to an extent, but I couldn't tell you.
So basically, it says in it that justice will not be delayed. And they were like, you're keeping people on bail for too long. It changed the, rulings. Jim Davidson as well was on bail for months and months. Paul Gambaccini on bail for months and months. And then went, you won't face charges. So Theresa May at the time was Home Secretary and said, right, there should be a limit to this of 28 days for bail. And so from 2017 it changed that bail was now 28 days.
Okay.
But I think actually from something I've been involved in recently, that it's 3 months and then you can get a 3-month extension. So it might have been in relation to this case. Basically they said that how Operation Yewtree was dealt with, because they were arresting people without properly investigating them before, so there was not enough sort of... They were saying there's not enough evidence to make an arrest, but I think that if you have a witness statement, you're listing crimes, then that is what you do, is go and arrest. They basically said it undermined the idea that you're innocent or proven guilty because of how it was dealt with in the press.
Kind of get that, yeah.
Jim Davidson did a Fringe show about it, an Edinburgh Fringe show. It was his debut hour. Didn't get a nom. It was called No Further Action, which is a very good name for a show about it.
It is a good title, to be fair.
It was all about him being arrested under Operation Yewtree about alleged sexual offences and then his sort of life after that. And then he got, probably the August before he went up, the Crown prosecution said there's insufficient evidence for a realistic prospect of conviction, which is not the same thing as saying someone is innocent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that Jim Davidson did anything, but insufficient evidence for a realistic prospect of conviction is not the same as going, there is no case to answer. They're going, there's not enough evidence to be found guilty.
He's a very unpleasant person.
Well, there's a really fascinating interview with him at about this time. And he says some fucking wild shit. So this is a journalist, and I presume from later on she's female. He says, I was listening to the Max Clifford case and I read an article about one of the victims and it sounded daft. And then he says, you must tell me as a woman or perhaps a feminist how it's possible to force a woman to do a sex act on you. And then she goes, well, I was fucking really surprised by this question. So we're just looking at each other. She says, how's it possible to give you a blowjob? And he goes, yeah, if a man doesn't have a knife or threaten to kill you or have a gun, how do you force someone? And why would you want to with all these teeth in there? Right? And she says, but that it does happen. And he goes, I can't see how. This is mad, but there's a real plot twist coming up here. He says, I can't see how that could physically happen. How could you force someone to perform a sex act on you and then they don't run away afterwards? I don't know how you do that. And so she said, well, you don't think it's enough to maybe threaten violence? And he went, oh, well, she didn't say that. She didn't say that you threatened violence. He says, I'm talking about this specific person in this Max Clifford case. He says, well, I understand if they were threatened. I can understand that. But that's the only way you could force someone to perform a sex act on you. He says, and they keep saying in the newspaper, he made me perform a sex act. So that must mean that they're threatened with violence. And if they're not, it's not true. And then she says, well, the threat's implicit, right? You don't always need to say it. And he went, yeah, well, that's just the bit that gets me. So he basically goes, they keep saying, he made me do a sex act, and he's going, there's no such thing. And then she's going, well, what if someone threatens you? And he's going, oh, well, that's different. She would have said that. And it's like, yeah, but sometimes the threat is in the air. Because also, sometimes the threat is that someone is very powerful.
Well, sometimes the threat is that you are a woman and that is a man.
Yes, and you're like...
That is the threat.
I think there's so many people...
The threat could be, oh, fuck, right, I feel... If I give him a blowjob, maybe that means he won't rape me.
Yeah. There's so many experiences of my friends and me where you're like, I'm going to do this thing because it's safer. I don't want to do it, but this thing is safer than what I think that they could do.
There's me and this man who's stronger than me.
Yeah. There's
me and this man who's more powerful than me. So, of course, that is...
Yeah.
He's just an arrogant misogynist.
Then he goes on to say later in the story, here's the plot twist, that he was molested at the age of 13. And be like, so you can understand how someone could molest a 13-year-old boy, but you can't understand how a woman can give a sex act that she doesn't want to. It's like, so you can understand how you didn't want to engage in that, but you can't understand how anyone else is made to do something.
It's very...
Also, they're children. Like, loads of these people are children that we're talking about. Best case scenario, they're over 16 and under 18, but largely these are kids we're talking about. So what happened here is, of course, like with all these things, like with Me Too and anything, there was a backlash against
it. The thing is, I'll give Jim Davidson, he's consistently horrible.
He's fucking vile.
He's a vile person. And I think he was abusive towards his...
Yeah. Domestic violence, like million divorced wives, hates women.
He's another... person that we weren't allowed to watch in the house when I was growing up because my granddad, poor Daniels, my granddad saw him. I think he was imitating like an African accent or
Chalky was
an Indian accent.
It was a West Indian traffic warden, right?
Yeah, and my granddad was like, "This isn't going on in the house." And good, I feel like I've no connection to anything he's ever done, Jim Davidson, because of that. Because he was on TV all the time, wasn't he?
Big Break was great.
Big Break, Generation Game.
Generation Game, yeah. It was very beloved in my house.
Quite the opposite in mine.
Well, there's a much healthier place to be raised. So, there was this huge backlash to it, where everyone went, oh, it's getting to be a witch hunt now. And I suspect that narrative, once everyone wants to kind of sweep it under the carpet, and you have to investigate every allegation. And like I say, just because an allegation doesn't result in a conviction, it doesn't mean that act didn't happen. And it must have been very invalidating for a lot of the victims. There's people who, if Jimmy Savile's been convicted, not all of those things, it's like when serial killers, we all know this, they'll be charged for 14 counts of something and they'll be found guilty of 7.
Yes.
That doesn't mean they didn't do the other murders.
Yes.
And they're always included in their like body count. And it's really fucked up in this case that we're sort of going, oh, well, it's PC gone mad.
The people that were prosecuted, Gary Glitter,
Ugh.
Chris Denning, who I didn't know who that was until this morning. He was another DJ. Rolf Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Talbot.
Oh, God, yeah, Fred the Weather.
Now,
how do you explain that to people outside of the UK? In the UK, even.
Fred Talbot is a small man.
Jazzy jumpered.
Who wore, woolly jumpers that had always had, the sunshine paint knitted
He was a
on
weatherman.
He was a weatherman, yeah. And he'd stand on this big map of
Floating
the UK,
map.
floating map in Albert Dock in Liverpool, and he'd do the weather on the big map, and then he'd jump across to Northern Ireland and everyone would cheer, and then he'd jump back. That was basically it. But I might have told this on the podcast before, might have even told it in this thing, but Fred Talbot used to be a teacher at my friend's school, boys' school, Altrincham Grammar Boys' School, I think it was. And years ago, this is when I worked with my friend, and I was about 19, and we worked at Tourist Information together, and my friend was about 10 years older than me. And I remember him telling me, he said, Fred Talbot used to be my teacher, my geography teacher, and he said, there's something not right about him. We went on a field trip on a canal barge, and in the morning, I got up, and in his bedroom, 2 boys were in bed with him.
What?
And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He said, listen, there's something going on. And the thing is, he's really friendly with all the kids' parents. And he said, he's never done anything to me. He said, but I saw some things that were just not right. And then, years after that, it all came out that he was then... And Ian Brown, the singer from Stone Roses, gave evidence at this trial.
What?
It all came out, and I text my friend... I won't say his name. I text my friend, and I said, my God, I remember you telling me about this all those years ago, and I've always remembered it. And it's all...
You kept it to yourself. You got blood in your hands.
And it's all come out now. And he went, yeah, wonder if they'll ever find the children's shoes in his garden. I was like, all right, mate. Make it fucking dark.
Hell.
But he's in prison now.
Is he?
Yes, he's in prison. Still in prison. Someone that I was connected to was also in the same prison. Not that, but Fred Talbot was in a different wing, the nonces wing. And he used to exercise in the yard, and people used to shout at him from the upper bits of the prison. He's still in there.
Fucking
He's
hell.
done. Ray Terrett, I think he was a DJ and also a driver for a lot of people. Stuart Hall. He's the one you always forget.
BBC Manchester, all of his crimes took place. The buildings that are now demolished on Oxford
Yes.
Road. He prolific abuser.
Max Clifford, who...
He was a publicist.
He's the one that I found, I can't believe... him and Rolf Harris were the 2 people that I was like...
Is he the one who took his own life?
Max Clifford?
Yeah.
No.
Who's the one who took his own life?
Oh, I don't know.
Max Mosley.
Yeah, but Max Mosley... I think, did he commit suicide? Max Mosley hadn't done anything.
No, but there was a PR person who took their own life that I get confused.
There was Max... Didn't Max Mosley... He sued the Sun, I believe, because they...
Oh, it was about his sex life?
Yeah.
Because he was into just S&M and they were
But
Nazis.
But because of his connection to... Because his dad was
a fascist.
Yeah, and they claimed that he was doing, he wanted the girls to dress as Nazis.
Which was all bullshit.
And it was bullshit. And he sued them. And rightly won.
Yeah.
Because that's his business.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And also, he's not responsible for his father's actions, is he? So, Max Clifford, who was a publicist, PR guru, he was found guilty. He used to be on a lot of TV. If anything happened in showbiz or whatever, they'd always now we're going to hear from Max Clifford with his opinion on it. And he always seemed like a really sound bloke.
Yeah.
And I was just very surprised that he's dead now. Gary Glitter, Paul Gadd.
Oh, yeah, poor Gad.
8 offences, guilty of rape and indecent assault. Dave Lee Travis, another DJ.
What was he called? The crispy cornflake?
The hairy cornflake. The crispy. That's disgusting. When I used to work at Kendall's department store in Manchester, he was always the one person that said, oh, Dave Lee Travis used to be a window dresser here. Great. He got 3 months suspended sentence for indecent assault, found not guilty on some charges. Chris Denning, this is the former DJ. Very strange, there's 26 male victims between 1967 and 1987. He admitted it. He got 13 years in prison. Operation.
Fucking hell. It's so mad that he can 1967 and 87. You can do it for 20 years and you only get 13.
Yeah, I know. Operation Yewtree ended in 2015, and it was absorbed by Operation Winter Key.
And also Operation Fire Hydrant.
Oh, fuck off.
Yes, which is... Oh, no, it's Operation Hydrant, which was into historic child abuse in the UK. So there was 1,433 suspects. 261 of them are famous people. 154 of them worked at schools. 75 of them worked at children's homes. 40 of them were in religious institutions. By the way, that's so funny. They don't mean mosques there. They mean churches. They just can't say it. And 14 of them were at medical facilities. Yeah. And so you can see there that they tend to target places where they can access children and then work out which ones are
think
vulnerable.
Everyone who works in hospitals and with children should be women.
Yeah, I mean, you just drop the odds, wouldn't you?
They would plummet.
Yeah. So that is Jimmy Savile's death.
There can't be any more.
That is Operation Yewtree.
No more, please.
Well...
What else?
Well, no, there's... I mean, I suppose
what do you... Come on.
I suppose we've covered it, like the aftermath of what happened, and... You know, there's been Netflix documentaries and stuff since, but we don't need to cover those because you could go and watch them if you listen to all this and you're like, oh, do you know what I fancy? A bit more of Sir James.
Should we have a Jimmy Savile night?
We'll do that dine for two from Waitrose and we'll pop on a Jimmy Savile.
Yeah. I love that shit, me.
But yeah, I suppose it's led to... I don't think it's led to much cultural change. Because what happened is that for a while children were believed, and then there was so much focus on what would happen is when things were acquitted, they go, people are lying, as opposed to there just wasn't enough evidence because it was 40 years ago and people's memories are sketchy. And it just came back to victims can't be believed again.
Until the next time
that
this happens. Because, is it Marion Jones that has said this?
I think it's Mark, what is it? Two Welsh names,
Mark Williams Thomas. So he's now a journalist who dealt with quite awful cases as a detective, didn't he, in the police? A lot of child abuse that he dealt with. And he always tend to be very serious people, those, don't they? I think they've been like...
Yeah.
I've seen so many things that are horrible that this is just me on one level now.
Yeah.
He has said, though, there is someone else.
One big one.
One big one. And he said this several times. Didn't he tweet it the other day? Yeah. He said that there is... And I have no doubt that man would want this person outed and brought to justice. And I think the fact that he's hinting at it, you know, he's saying that this is still happening. There is a beloved... Someone beloved.
And I think I know who it is and you don't think it's that person.
I just don't think it is, you know.
And I guess time will tell.
Yeah, as we say... Until next time.
We'll wait till 12 months after he's died and then we'll see. I think there's a lot of money tied up in him.
You think?
Yes, in terms of international rights for things. So, also, I can't think of many beloved people. We should cut that bit out.
Yeah.
Let them think it's David Attenborough.
No, never. See, that annoys me. That. Also, this annoys me. Just ageism. As soon as a man becomes old, they don't automatically become a nonce. It fucking pisses me off, that. Fair's fair here, and I'll stick up for men on this. I bet older guys get sick of being assumed to be...
Well, my brother has it in that he's a primary teacher and people just assume that he's a paedophile.
Fucking wrong. Like, I hate it.
Yeah.
Just reserve it for the people that are, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that. Who are we doing next? We're doing that guy that I sent you.
Yeah,
one ep.
One ep. Bang it out. Get it done. Thanks for sticking with us.
See you at the show.
See you at the live shows. Bye.